The day has come. We are getting rid of the office that I've always wanted and moving our company virtual. In this episode, I'm talking about the 8 lessons that I've learned while in this office, and some of them may not be what you expected. So keep listening. Hi, I'm Brandon Lucero, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in business, entrepreneurship, and life by leaning into who you are, what you love, and standing up for what you want to create. Get ready, because this is where we go against the grain, say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to change in order to create a happier, more fulfilled world. Welcome to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Today is a sad and happy day. The reason why is we have decided to get rid of our office. So I've been in business, I think 7 or 8 years, and I worked out of the garage. And then for a lot of years, so before I even started my business, I was working out of the garage. My wife and I had this house, this tiny little house, and we had a roommate with one of our friends, or one of our friends was a roommate. And I'd work in the garage, just building websites and just trying anything and everything to make money online. And then after that, we moved in with my in-laws. They worked in and out of their garage. I filmed a lot of my videos in their garage. And then we moved into our own house, started a family. I worked out of the garage for there for a really long time, and getting an office was a really big deal. It was a really big accomplishment. I mean, I remember being at my home office, which was my garage, about probably 4 years ago now. And I remember thinking, and that house that we were in didn't even have air conditioning, so it would get really hot in the summer, and we would just have these like mobile units and these fans and stuff like that, and it would just get really hot. And I remember telling her like, oh, one day, what if we just got an office up in the business park right up the road? I mean, it's literally a quarter mile away. Like I could walk to the office into my old house. And I was like, that would be so amazing. They have air conditioning. We can like go up there in the hot summer days, and we can watch TV or movies with the kids, and we can put the AC on. We don't have to be in this house that's making us, it feels like a sauna. We're sweating all the time. And I was in the garage. It was even hotter. And then the day came, we finally got the office. And we had one unit. It was about 800 to 1,000 square feet. It's just 2 rooms. It was one room, which is like a reception area, which became my office, and then a bigger room. And then attached to that bigger room was a bathroom and like a little closet that we made into like a little kitchen area. So that's where Taylor and and then I hired Taylor right around that same time. And ironically, it's actually in the same exact building where my dad's business was, where I first started. I started working for my dad right out of college, and things were going great. And then his business, took a turn for the worst. And then that's led me to the path of starting my own business. And ironically, it's in the same building on the opposite side of the building. And it was a big deal for me, but because of COVID, as we grew, we actually took the unit next door over as well. So as we grew, I remember this room. Matt, how big do you think that room is? 20 feet by 20 feet, maybe?
Maybe 15.
Yeah, it's like 15 by 15 feet. Like it's not very big. We had 6 people working in there at one point, like 6 people working. So the people next door to us wanted the next office, wanted to leave, get out of their lease. So I took it over and we bashed the wall down, and we expanded and we doubled the size of our office. And it was awesome. Like I took the time to put up old vintage wood on the walls and like really rustic. And we had like this brick kind of theme and old wood, and then just industrial. Like I just loved the office. It was really fun. But like I was saying, due to COVID, we've had to go virtual. And so, some of the rules and the things were saying that you couldn't really be in the office. You couldn't really, obviously we're going to follow whatever the California, the state and federal laws or rules or whatever are telling us to do. So we couldn't be in the office. And so we were forced to go virtual. And we were that way for about 6 months. And even when things opened up, I didn't really want to force the team to come back to the office if they weren't comfortable with it. And things were going fine. And then our lease was up. And so at the end of the lease, which is the end of November, is the last day of our office. And I think today's November 10th. So this is going to be the last episode that we film in the office or record in the office. And that's what we're doing here today. And we're going to move the company completely virtual. So everyone's working from home. And we're going to talk about a couple things here on this episode of what we're going to do, how we're going to operate, what the company's going to look like, but we're going to talk about lessons here in a second. And the biggest thing for me in all of this is just taking a moment to realize what we've built, but also how much the world is actually changing. And that's what I love. That's what we stand for with the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. We stand for change and making things better and doing things differently and focusing on happy, like bringing more happiness into people's lives. And I think this move will actually give more freedom to my employees, hopefully make them happier as well, although it is really fun being together still at the same time. And we'll probably do another episode talking about what this transition has been like, what our company looks like completely virtual versus in person, changes we've had to make. We won't do that on today's episode, but maybe in a future episode. So anyways, office lease is ending. We're moving the company virtual. And what I want to share with you guys is what I call the 4 in 4. Or 4 and 4, not 4 in 4, but 4 and 4. So we're going to go over 4 lessons that this move has taught me, or 4 lessons that it has taught me, or things I had to put into place. And then we're also going to talk about 4 lessons, the 4 biggest lessons I learned while in this office, while building a company. Because when I walk around the office, I'm just remembering so many different things that happened. Oh, that's when blah, 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 blah. Or this is like where I fired our first person or hired our first person. And so I'm just kind of going through the office and I want to just reflect back on the 4 and 4. So let's start off by talking about the 4 lessons that this move has taught me. Number 1, and this is something that hopefully our episode with Mel has come out. If it hasn't, it should come out soon, but being financially smart and financially aware of things that are going on. So this office cost me around, I think the rent is about $2,100 a month. It's actually pretty affordable. It's like $1.15 a square foot. So for those of you who don't know, when you go to commercial real estate, it's not like renting a house where they have just a set price for the house that you want to rent or the apartment. They do everything by square footage. So you're actually negotiating a price per square foot. And by the way, yes, you can negotiate all sorts of different things when you're getting commercial real estate. So, or leasing commercial real estate. So if you are thinking about leasing commercial real estate, I highly recommend that you get a broker, like a real estate broker or a real estate agent that focuses on commercial to do that, because you can totally negotiate so many things. You can negotiate any construction that you need done in there into the price. You can negotiate free months for a longer lease. You can negotiate square footage price. But anyways, the point is it costs us around $2,100 a month, not including any utilities. So it doesn't include internet. It doesn't include electricity. It doesn't include water. It doesn't include any of that stuff, right? So all of that stuff is extra. And so I'm guessing we're saving anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 range a month by getting rid of this office. And part of me goes, well, yeah, it's worth, the $36,000 a year because we build up camaraderie within the team. There's a lot of great things for having an office. We have a place to go shoot content and all of that stuff. And so it was really easy to justify it. But I started looking around, like, what are other ways and other opportunities for us to move this money around? It's already money we're spending everywhere every month, but how are we going to be smarter with our money? And what we decided was to, instead of renting something, why don't we own something? And that $3,000 a month could be a mortgage somewhere. And so the plan is to eventually we will look to buy something and we will pay that $3,000 a month for the office, but we'll spend it on a mortgage that we own. So now we have an asset. And again, it doesn't cost me any extra money. It's just reconstructing the company and really leaning into what was really working, and going virtual was working. And now we have an asset because of it. The other thing that we were looking at was, well, we do a lot of events, right? And a lot of them are small events, like 20 people or less. And anytime we do an in-person event, whenever COVID allows for it, we have to buy venue space for all of that. So we were constantly like renting out hotel venues and all of this stuff. But if we bought a house in a desirable location, we could hold our events there and we don't have to pay any more event space. I can just hold our smaller events at the house that we buy, and then the rent that we are paying pays for the mortgage. And then we can go ahead and rent that out as a vacation home when it's not being used. And now we're making money off of it. So we started to really look at how can we move things around inside the company? Can we move money around to actually build wealth, to build another source of income? And there might be ways and opportunities inside of your business right now where you can move things around to start building an asset. Maybe there's, an employee that's not really performing and you're afraid to fire them. Well, what if you did fire them and then you took that money you're paying them and invested in something else that will help grow your business? Or what if there's something that you're paying for right now that you don't actually need? Like for us, it was the office. There's ways to start moving things around and different opportunities if you look for them in order to start building and being smarter with your money. And I can tell you right now, when you start making money and it comes in easier and easier and easier, it becomes easier and easier to spend it. And it does. And this has been a big lesson for me, is being smart with how you're spending it, how you're saving it, what you're investing in, and things like that. And the person that helped me with that the most is Mel Abraham, who we either have had or will have soon, depending on what our release schedule is for our episodes soon, where he talks about that. He talked about the 4 different areas where you should be spending money as an entrepreneur. There's how do you figure out how much you should be spending on Facebook ads, or what a risk is, or what's the safe way to build up the savings or to build wealth. He talks about the 4 different areas that you should be and where you should be spending money to start looking at things differently. And that was one of the biggest lessons with this move was, holy moly, I just got into this routine of just like, yep, here's the money, here's the money, here's the money, here's the money, and never took a moment to stop and just go like, where are we actually spending money right now? Is there other opportunities and ways to make more money, to save more money, and be more financially smart and focus more on wealth generation versus just expenses of the company? And that was lesson number 1, was be smart and just periodically take moments of reflection. And this was a huge reflection period for us, of different ways to be able to spend your money that might be able to allow you to build more wealth or more security or another source of income, or maybe just to hire that employee that you need so you can grow the business that you have now. Maybe there's things that you're doing in your personal life that you could rearrange to spend more money inside your business to hire the virtual assistant you need. Like there's always ways and opportunities. So that was lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is one that I have talked about a lot, but it was really, there's something that we had at our last event. There was something I kept saying at our last event, which was, don't make this event a quotable. Don't take the information in this event and go like, wow, that was great information, and then not implement it. And that's what step number 2 is. Step number 2 is something that I actually say a lot, but I really had to actually implement as we started to move out of the office. And that is, things don't have to be the way you think they need to be. And being okay with how things are going. One of the things that causes a lot of suffering in people's lives is they have an expectation in their mind, or they have a thought in their head of how things need to be, how things need to look, how things are supposed to go. And this can be for all sorts of different reasons. This could be because that's the way you were brought up and raised. Your parents tell you blah, 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 blah. Like, money doesn't grow on trees, or our family doesn't have that. So you just think our family doesn't have that. Or our family is our doctor. So you're going to be a doctor. And we think that we have to be doctors now. And then when we don't want to be a doctor, it causes suffering, turmoil, and all this stuff. Things don't have to be the way you guys think they need to be. There doesn't have to be a kid keeping up with the Joneses. There doesn't have to be like this version of the future that you have in your head. Things don't need to work out that way. In fact, they hardly ever do. But what happens is when we get an expectation set in our head, and the reality, the future unfolds, our present unfolds, it doesn't match up to the vision that we had in our head. It sends a lot of people into panic and chaos and sadness and all that stuff. And I really had to put that in practice, because for me, I had this idea of, I want an in-person office. I want people in an office. I want to come into an office and have a team of people that I love hanging out with all day. We get to work and have fun. And that's what I wanted. And that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create an office where we all come in. It's fun. Sometimes we'd take a break in the middle of the day and play games, which we did. We'd play Catan, or sometimes we'd go to a winery and work. I just loved that. I loved being around my team every day, having fun, changing lives, creating an impact. And that's what I wanted. And I really had to let go of that idea and just tell myself, you know what, Brandon, it doesn't need to be the way that you think it's going to be. Maybe it's better. Maybe now you have more freedom where you're not tied down to an office. Maybe, just start to shift my perspective. And I remember when Taylor first started working here, we had a discussion. She wanted to take the company virtual. And, I think it might've been for her own personal reasons. I'll just go ahead and say that, because she wanted to, she wants to move to Colorado, that girl. And I don't blame her. I kind of do too. But anyways, we would have these discussions like, would you eventually take the company virtual and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, honestly, I just don't want to. That just wasn't the thing that I wanted to do. But because of the way things are unfolding, we had to. And honestly, it's been freaking awesome. And this whole experience could have caused me to go like, oh, I'm so sad. And I am sad. Like, it's just sad to see it go, but I'm not like, I'm in the moment, I'm in the office and I'm just kind of reminiscing. I'm like, oh yeah, it's kind of sad, blah, blah, blah. And then I leave the office and I'm like, okay, great. Let's move on with my life. I'm happy. And I really had to let go. And I really had to let go of that idea and just realize it doesn't need to be the way that you think it needs to be. And that sent me down into a spiral of things and realized, you know what, you've actually gotten really good, Brandon, at letting go. Because I was not always like this. I was actually the person who would have an idea of how something's supposed to go in their head. And when it didn't go that way, I would fight and I would scream and I would try to control and I would try to force everything to go that way. And sometimes it did, and sometimes it didn't. But what I've really learned, and I realized in the moment where I'm like, yeah, okay, we're just going to go virtual. I realized in that moment, wow, that was really quick. That was really easy for you to let go of how things are supposed to be. And I realized I actually have done that a lot over the last 2 years. And it really reminds me, the more I let go, the more I grow. The more I let go inside my company, the more the company grows. And you really have to let go in order to grow. And the reason why is because you can try to control. You can try to say this is how things are supposed to be, and you can try to force it. But look back in your life. How many times have you tried to control something or said this is the way it's going to be, and it actually happened in the exact way that you thought it was going to? Almost never. So why on earth would we ever try to hold on to how things are supposed to be? And that's where true happiness is. Just do what you want to do, say what you want to say, be what you want to be, instead of trying to fit into the box that someone else has created for you. So just to give you a couple of examples, the agency. When Matt first came here, I had a very good idea of how I wanted the agency to go. The second I let go, boom, it was amazing. It turned into something that I didn't think it would. It freed up a lot of my time, but the more I held on, the more turmoil that it caused. Another example, what I teach. I was holding on to the fact that I wanted to teach YouTube. That's what people knew me for. Oh my God, I can't change because people know me for teaching YouTube marketing and I can't change it. And I held on. Well, guess what happened when I let go of that? The 4X was created and we took off. $1 million business, multi-million-dollar business. The office is another one. I'm letting go of having an in-person team and embracing the virtual and just seeing how it goes. Another one is controlling our launches. I had a hard time letting go of our launches and letting Taylor fully run them. The second I let Taylor fully run our launches, we had our back-to-back 2 biggest launches ever. And I just showed up to teach and do the things that I need to do, and Taylor ran all of them. I had to let go in order to grow. Another one is the mastermind idea. I wanted to have a mastermind, and if you haven't heard the episode of how Taylor killed my dreams, you can just look for the episode called How My Integrator Killed My Dreams in Order to Grow or something like that. But I had this idea of this mastermind that I wanted to do in 2020. And Taylor brought up all these points that says that's not a great idea. So I had to let go of that. And guess what? We're now very streamlined and focused on what we're creating for 2021. That would have been a distraction, and it's going to allow us to grow. So lesson number 2, let go in order to grow. Lesson number 3. Oh, and one thing that I would love for you guys to share with us is, what is one thing right now that you could let go of that would cause growth inside of your company? And we do have a Facebook group coming out. So if it's out already, you can go ahead and share it in there. If not, just hold on to it for when we do open the group. But we are going to be releasing a new Facebook group just for podcast listeners with extra episodes and things like that. So that should be coming soon. It'll be called the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast on Facebook. That's the group. Lesson number 3. This is kind of related to step number 2, but it really showed me that things don't need to be done a certain way. So there's a lot of ways to get something done. So if the end goal is just to have a certain type of result, who really cares if it's done a specific way or your way or whatever? And because we're virtual, I have to really trust my team to log their hours or be working the whole time. And I don't want to do that. And I didn't really have to do it when they were here because you saw when they showed up and you saw when they left. But at the end of the day, it really forced me to look at the company in a different way. It forced me to look at the company and not do things have things done a certain way. And what I mean by that is we've always done things a certain way of okay, you need to show up from this time to this time. And I am starting to realize how ineffective that actually is running a team by managing hours versus running a team by managing KPIs and tasks and goals. And I'm literally at the point right now where I'm shifting the entire way that we're running the team, or Taylor and I are, which is it's going to be very much more KPI focused. When the team is virtual, I'm at the point I don't care. You want to work an hour a day? Go work an hour a day. Here's the KPI you need to hit. Here's the goal that you are responsible for hitting. Here's the tasks that you need to get done. Go get them done. And it's much more important for me for the KPIs to be hit, the task to be done, and the goal to be hit than someone making sure they're hitting 40 hours a week. I just literally don't care anymore. It doesn't matter. So the way I even look at the team and run the team is a little bit differently. And I'm starting to realize that this whole thing is a big blessing in disguise, because it really gets you to look at how do we make the team super lean and this well-oiled machine that just operates. And it's really showing me, I'll move into the last step, how grateful and lucky I am to have everything in my life. When I walk around the office, I'm just so grateful because it just really shows me, here's where you were when you first moved in. You were $40,000 in debt. Yes, I was in debt when I got the office because I needed a quiet place. Even it was an extra $1,000 a month. You were in debt, $40,000. I didn't even create the Video 4X yet. I just knew I didn't want to do what I was doing anymore, so I just gave up everything and I got the office at the exact same time. And then 3 months later, hired Taylor, started the Video 4X. The Video 4X was literally created in this office. You guys know the story. That might be TMI. I was sitting on the toilet in the other room, and then boom, it hit me. And I go to the board and I map it all out. It was literally created in this office. And I'm just so grateful for all the growth, all the people that have come in, the team members that we have. And now I look at what I came in with less than nothing. I came in with negative $40,000, and I'm leaving with a multi-million-dollar business. And I came in with no employees, and I'm leaving with 6 in-person employees and an overseas team and some contractors that we work with. I didn't have any of that. And I'm just so grateful that this is my experience of COVID, because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs out there that don't have the same experience as me. The government didn't come in and tell me that I had to be offline for 6 months, but they did tell some businesses they literally can't operate their business for 6 months. So I don't know. It's just extremely lucky and grateful that happened for us. But I am extremely beyond grateful for everything in here. I'm grateful for all the things that we have, all the books that we have, all the furniture that we have, all the employees that I have. I don't know. When you start packing everything up, you start realizing how much stuff you actually have and all the things that you've actually built. And inside my company, we take gratefuls every day, or twice a week. What are you grateful for? And we always share gratefulness, but bringing down and moving out of the office has really showed me, a lot. It showed me how much stuff that I have in my life, all the good things, all the growth that I've seen. And I'm incredibly grateful for it. So those are the 4 lessons that this move has taught me. Number 1, be smart about the money. Number 2, things don't have to be the way you think they need to be. Number 3, things don't need to be done a certain way to still get results. And then number 4, just to always live in gratefulness for everything that you have. And what I want to do now is let's transition to the 4 lessons that I learned in this office. So the 4 lessons I learned while in this office. Now there was a lot of lessons. Like I just said, when I moved into the office, I was $40,000 in debt, no team whatsoever, and I was still selling YouTube marketing. And then within 3 months, I had hired Taylor. I had created the Video Forex Effect, and we went to launch it. Now, I've learned so many lessons because there's everything from team building to scaling launches, to spending money, to making money, to wasting money, to not building the team in the right way, to hiring the wrong people, to not firing people fast enough. There's just so many lessons. And so I had to narrow it down to 4. And the first thing I want to talk about and tell you guys a couple stories here. The first lesson that I've learned inside this office is how to hire and fire people. And I would say the very first lesson with firing people is when someone isn't the right person, you want to fire them really fast and not hold on to keeping them around. So the other lesson on the flip side of that is when you have the right people, you actually don't really need to hire more people sometimes. And so that phrase, hire slow and fire fast, is really true. Because when you get the right people, like I look at 2019, I think we did 1.1 million in sales or revenue, and we had 6 or 7 employees at the time, like in person, not including our overseas team. Well, we're probably going to be right around 2 million this year, and we have less employees than we did last year. So how did we make twice as much money with less employees? We just hired the right people, the right teams, the right process, the right offers, the right everything. It's a well-oiled machine. We move people into the right spots. And I think it was James Wedmore that gave me this piece of advice that said something like, when you plant a flower and it doesn't grow, you don't blame the flower, you blame the environment. It didn't get enough soil, didn't get the right soil, didn't get enough sun or enough water or too much water or whatever it was. And we really took that to heart as moving people around. But also the biggest thing I learned was actually being a leader. And you can't be Mr. Nice Guy and Mr. Cool Guy all the time. You can be friends with your employees, and I am, but also at the same time, you have to kind of show up as a leader to lead them. And you have to be serious about certain things, and you have to stand for what you want, and you have to enroll them, and you have to get them to see the vision. And that was something that I wouldn't do sometimes when I first started hiring people. I would not say certain things because I was afraid of their reactions. I would not implement certain rules or give too many, I'd be too lenient on certain things. And you really start to see, like, when you're lenient with one person, well, then the other person starts to think that they can get lenient too. And it just creates this culture of like a college frat house, for lack of a better word. And it was never that bad. But some of the things, like, just to share a story with you, I remember the very first person that we hired, or second or third person we hired, actually. And their role, the responsibility was to post our clients' content. They didn't have to write the copy. It's just, here's the link, here's the video, here's the copy, go on their social media, and you just post it. Well, this person would show up. They would sit in the corner of our office so you couldn't see their computer. We had bean bags, and they would go sit in the bean bag. And then Taylor and I'd be like, well, I don't know what they're doing. Like, they still haven't posted all this, scheduled any of the stuff. And then we would ask them, like, halfway through the day, and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get on it. And then they would wait till the last 10 minutes, and we're just like, what are they doing every day? Now, this person only worked for us for 30 days. It should have been a week at the most when I look back on it. I literally think this person was watching movies while at work and then waiting to the last few minutes to get their work done. They wouldn't show up on time, and eventually, yes, we had to fire them. I should have fired them first, earlier, but we didn't. So that was a great learning lesson. We also had a person interview one time, and this is fun. When you start to interview people, it's just kind of funny to see people's answers on certain things. And we asked someone what their dream job was, and the guy looks at Taylor and I, and he goes, well, I mean, obviously the dream job is to not work, right? And you're like, dude, you're at a job interview. That is the epitome of a lazy employee, like someone who doesn't want to work. Like, what? Why would you ever say that on a job interview? And I remember when I hired Taylor, her answer was like, I get fulfilled by putting in a hard day's work. Like, I feel really lazy if I don't. And those are the two opposite ends of the spectrum. And that's actually something I'm very grateful for, because Matt's the same way. Taylor's the same way. A lot of our employees are the same way, where they're really hard workers. And that leads me to the second part of the hiring and firing, which is hold on to good people. You know, like, for example, Taylor for a while wanted to work virtual. You know, she wanted to work virtual. And it was never a discussion of, no, you can't do that. You know, she moved in pretty far away from the office. And I remember we had a conversation about it. And her commute would have been monstrous, but she had to go and move to this place. And she has like, I really would like you to consider this working virtually. And again, it wasn't what I wanted. I wanted an in-person team. And it was never a discussion of, no, you can't do this. It's a discussion of how do we make it work? And I wouldn't do that for someone who was a bad employee. I would do it for someone who I want to keep forever, right? And so when you find those good people, you have to make sure you have those discussions with them. And I think for me, one of the ways that I've always showed up as a good leader was to help support their dreams and their happiness as well. So if some of my employees, and this did happen, wanted to go do work on the side, which was very similar to what we're doing here, I didn't care. Like, go do that. If that's what makes you happy and you want to do something, as long as you're getting your stuff done here, you can go do whatever it is that you want to do. And, you know, Jackie and our team has a dream of eventually making music videos for a living. And she plays a pretty vital role in our company. I'm like, yes, you should do that. You can. Like, I don't expect you to be here forever. I want you to be happy. I want you to follow your dreams. You know, Emily has a dream of opening a bakery one day. And it's like, great. Well, you're in a perfect environment to learn entrepreneurship. You should do that one day. And that's the thing is you got to realize as a business owner, your vision, your dream doesn't need to be the vision and the dream of all your employees. They have to support it and they have to believe in it, but it doesn't mean that their life needs to be dedicated to your company. So if you focus on their dreams and their happiness, you know what you get back in return? You get loyalty here. You get loyalty back inside of your company if you treat your employees and their dreams with respect, and you honor and you support their stuff. You know, you get that back in return for yours. And it's kind of a novel concept, isn't it? Be nice to people and people be nice back to you. Like, wow, who would have thought? But a lot of business owners don't do that. And again, it's not something fake. Like, I genuinely want my employees to be happy. A happy employee is someone who will go above and beyond for you. They put in they have better work. They're a better fit into the culture that you're creating. It's a much better way to really operate things. So that was lesson number one that I learned in this office, is really how to hire and fire people and kind of build a team. That was lesson number one. Lesson number two was how important camaraderie is when building a team. And for me, that was one of the reasons why I wanted an in-person office, was to build that stuff up. But I realized real quickly, it doesn't have to be built by just having an in-person office. You can do things like game night. A bunch of the gals or ladies in our company just had ladies night the other night. So our coaches and some of our contractors and some of the employees here had ladies night where I'm assuming had wine. They won't tell us many details because, you know, it's top secret ladies night. I don't know. It's kind of BS in my opinion, but you know, just excluding all of us guys. But no, just kidding. I'm glad they did that. And, but yeah, it's there's things like that build the camaraderie. So like, we will still meet in person, but now because they have ladies night, they're connecting with each other. So when we meet in person, it's like, whew, you just pick up right where you left off. I know companies that have game nights, you know, where on the clock, you get paid to like come have game nights with us. And I think camaraderie is absolutely vital to building a team. That's one of the lessons that I learned here. Like, luckily we were able to do it in person. We were able to go to wineries and to dinners and to lunches and just really get along with people. And again, that helps the culture. It helps people work better together. And so if you are not actively trying to build relationships or camaraderie within your company, I definitely would recommend it. because it becomes a lot easier when you need to have difficult conversations or someone's late on a deadline. You can just have a normal conversation instead of like being afraid what they're going to say or this or that. It's just communication is so much different. It's like, if you have a conversation with a best friend, those difficult conversations are sometimes a lot easier than it would have been with someone that you don't get along with, right? So camaraderie was a huge thing when team building. Number 3, the biggest lesson I've learned here in this office is that silence is the key to the most powerful words. I'm going to say that again. Silence is the key to the most powerful words. And we're going to do an episode talking deeper on this, but when I came up with the video 4X effect, it was silence. And what I mean by silence is you stop the thinking mind, because the thinking mind can only think from a place of what it already knows. And say that again. The thinking mind can only think from a place it already knows. But if you're trying to create something that you don't know, that doesn't exist, you can't think your way there. And most people try to do that. Because your mind can only think from what it knows. It can only create thoughts from experiences it has. It can only create thoughts from where it's aware, right? It can only create thoughts from the knowledge that it has. But you don't have the knowledge yet to create something that doesn't exist. When you do go and create it, you'll then have the knowledge of it. But right now, you don't have the knowledge to create something that doesn't exist because you haven't learned it yet. You haven't done it yet. So how on earth are you supposed to think your way there? You can't. And, when we're journaling and we have ideas hit us so fast that we can't write them down, that's the silence. Just pop, 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 all these thoughts coming in. When you're in the shower and you get these amazing thoughts, pop, 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 that's the thinking mind is turned off. And I don't know, you can call it the universe, you can call it spirit guides, you can call it God, you can call it, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But there's the most powerful words and direction and thoughts that you're going to get come from the silence. And I've done this many of times. In fact, a lot of our podcast episodes come from that place. And that was lesson number 3. And that really was the most vital tool into scaling out this company, was really taking the time every day to sit in the silence, journal what pops up, not to shove what comes up into a box of realistic, unrealistic, but to do what it actually says, no matter how scary or fearful it is. Be courageous and do it anyways. That was a big lesson for me. And to wrap up this episode, I'm going to go into the last and final step, the biggest lesson that I learned while being in this office was that you get to set your kids' limits and version of normal. And this was something I was not expecting to happen, but it did. When my kids come into the office and they see what their dad created, they see their dad working in the garage and they see their dad now having an office and doing all, building all these things. And they ask, what do you do for work? Because now they're getting to the age where kids start asking that. And I say, own a business. That's normal to them. It's normal to go after what you want. It's normal to stand up for what you want to create and what you want to say. And the thing that I think is so beautiful is that when they come in and they see our employees and stuff, they don't see them as employees, they see them as friends. And they always say, oh, are you going to go hang out with your friends today at work? And I was like, yes. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a version in their head where going and enjoying where you work is normal. And I don't care if they're an entrepreneur or a business owner or not, but they now know it is normal to enjoy your work, to go be around people that you enjoy. They know that is possible and it's normal because that is what I have created here. And whether they get a job or not, they're likely not going to be the type of people that get into a job they hate and show up because they just think that's the way it is. Oh, I just got to go into work and do this job because that's just the way it is. Little Johnny, that's just the way it is. That's the way life is sometimes. That's the way life is. You just got to get up, even though you hate this and you don't like the people you work for and you don't like your boss. You just got to get up and do it anyways. No, my kids don't have that as a version of the reality. I'm setting the limit. I'm setting the version of where you can create what you want to create. And if you don't want to create anything, you can work in an environment doing something that you love with people that you love. And this was not something that I expected to have happen at all while being in this office, but it's one of the biggest lessons for me is to see my kids come in and experience my employees and experience the people that work here and experience what we do, and to form a decision of Brandon, my dad, gets to hang out with his friends. Like that's the experience that they saw. They had no context for anything. They come in here and they go, oh yeah, he's just hanging out with his friends. They're having fun. They're happy. And that is their new version of normal. And you get to create that for your kids. You set their limits. You set the expectations, because they're going to create expectations, even though no matter how much you tell them not to, everyone still does. But that was one of the biggest lessons I didn't expect to have happen. And it was a really powerful moment for me when I started to realize this. And that was the fourth and final lesson here. And I'm going to wrap up this episode because this is the last episode that we are filming here in the office with a really big reflection and lesson. And just to let you guys know, anything is really possible. You never know what's going to happen. If you really want something, no matter how unrealistic it is, you just never know what's going to happen in this game of life and business. And I remember when I first met Matt. So Matt was a student of mine from a local video academy years ago. He was in town. He's like, hey, do you want to, can we like meet up? I was like, yeah, come to my house. And I think, Matt, you had like an expectation I would be living in some like mansion or something like that, right?
Yeah, just not where you were.
So that's like expectation. I was like in a nice house and all this stuff. And it was like this old house from like the 60s that hasn't been updated in 20 years. And then I was working in my garage with this like really ghetto setup. And I was like, yeah, come on over. And he comes on in and, we start talking video and cameras and all this stuff. And I was just like, man, this is the guy that I need. This is the guy that I need to come into my company and start like helping me with content, creating all this stuff. I love his style of editing. Like, this is the guy that I need. And I'm like, but he lives on the East Coast. And there's no way that I can afford to hire him. And that's when I was living in the garage. I was like, man, I really wish I could hire you, and da-da-da-da-da. Well, as you guys know, he eventually came to work here. So he came here to consult, and then eventually came here, like we made him an offer, and he moved across the country, and now he works here running all of his content. Back then I was like, there's just no way that's even going to be possible. There's just no version of the world or in my mind that like he's going to come here and be able to do this stuff. Even if he could afford it, he lives halfway across the country. I don't know how that's going to make any sense or work. And then it's just really funny because when we close down the office, we're actually moving back into my garage, obviously in a different home, a nicer home than the old house we were in. But it's just kind of funny because it's like full circle. It's like, it's in this garage, and I was like, I just wish we could really hire you. And then now we're making the most money we've ever made. We're like kicking butt. And then I'm back in the garage. The only difference is Matt's here working. But anyways, the reason why I bring that up is because you guys just never know. Like if you want something, go after it. If there's something you want to do, then go do it. Don't let any version of someone else's reality tell you what is realistic and what's not, what's possible and not, and especially not yours. And that's what I did back then, is I let my version of realistic determine what was possible for me. And that just proof right there that, anything is possible, because I literally didn't think there was any way in the world that it could happen, but didn't let go of that idea, and here he is. And, there's this whole experience of moving back home and getting rid of the office is just, it's sad but happy, but it's just so beautiful of all the lessons we've learned. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode and got some cool insight from it. And again, we're starting that Facebook group very soon, so keep an eye out for that if it's not out already. And if you have not done so already, go ahead and leave us a review on iTunes. I'd be so grateful for that. And I'll talk to you guys on the next episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. Hey guys, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, go below, hit the subscribe button, and make sure you click on that bell icon and get notified every time we drop a new episode. Now, if you're looking for the show notes, we have them linked underneath this video, as well as our social media handles and some links to free training and offers that we drop from time to time to help you guys even further. So go check those out if you're interested, and thank you so much for tuning in to the New Generation Entrepreneur Podcast.